Everybody, welcome into another episode of the NFL Seekers podcast. Today, we're coming at you with our week 7 preview, predictions, fantasy football slash betting plays for every single game of week 7. Crazy, we're already at week 7. I'll give off our pick records so far this year. I have a 51-41 record, not the greatest. Stores has a 52-40 record, so we're neck and neck, right next to each other. Stores has me by one game. It's been a tight race all season. So excited to get into more games this week. Some really good matchups. How are you, Stores?
Doing good, Dan. It was rivalry week, and I'm gonna toot my own horn. It was a crisp game. It was crisp like a crisp graham cracker. Shout out Jim Harbaugh for being my absolute savior. I love that guy. He's got the Chargers just playing sound football, and I gotta boast to Dan and take the bragging rights. At least till the next game.
Yeah, diarrhea. Harbaugh pooped his pants in Denver. It's okay. We all know that he had a no altitude sickness. He pooped his pants in Denver. I know he got scared at the beginning of the game, and Surtain went out first play of the game, and it was over. At that point, I knew it was over. Herbert was just dicing that defense. He just didn't even need to try. He was just picking that defense apart. It was pretty brutal, not gonna lie. It was a terrible watch for me. But before we get into these games, I want to do a little exercise here, a new exercise, a bye week exercise. There's only two teams this week on bye week, the Bears versus the Cowboys. I want to do a if they were both playing on a neutral field, who's winning that game right now? Who are you picking? Bears versus Cowboys, the bye week matchup.
I'm taking the Bears. I'm taking the Bears. The Bears are playing some legit good football, and it's just sound on all three phases. Special teams. Um, wait, yeah, no, they're. Who was the one that had the special teams debacle? It wasn't the Bears. This week, the double doink.
Uh
Nick Folk. Nick Folk.
oh yeah,
Yeah, Nick Folk. Sorry, I just all of a sudden like second guess myself, but no, the Bears are playing sound football. The offense, Caleb Williams is just on fire. He's the highest graded PFF quarterback of this week. Keenan Allen came alive last week, and I mean they came alive in London and absolutely just put it to the Jags. So I think I'm feeling confident after that big win, and then in the Cowboys on the other hand. I don't know. I think Mike McCarthy's job is I think the time is finally going to be coming to an end here soon.
yeah, give me the Bears to win the bye week as well. Jerry Jones is just too inept. The Bears are looking hot. Caleb Williams was coming off a damn near perfect performance. If it wasn't for that one bad pick, the rest of the game was just flawless. Almost had 5 touchdowns if that DJ Moore one didn't call back. So give me the Bears. They look really good right now. The defense looks good. So there are bye week team of the week. But with that, let's go on to our first game of the week. We have one extra game to talk about since there's only 2 bye weeks. The Denver Broncos were 3-3 going to NOLA and play the 2-4 Saints, the Sean Payton revenge game. The Broncos are 3-point favorites on the road here. I think the reason that the Broncos are 3-point favorites, they haven't looked the greatest. I'm just going to read off kind of the Saints starting offense right now because they just have the most comical injury list in the NFL. I can't even read off all of their injuries or else we'd be here all day long. But wide receiver one this week, Bub Means out of Pitt, just a prospect that we both, we kind of mocked him to some teams late round just because he's a good athlete, ran a 4.4, I believe. So, pick him up in fantasy if you guys need a really, really deep cut play. I think Bud Means will be the wide receiver one. He will probably get into the end zone again, like he did last week. He will have that connection with Rattler. Wide receiver two, Mason Tipton, rookie out of Yale. Not too familiar with Mason Tipton. Cedric Wilson, the slot receiver who's been around for a while. You've got starting center who was just picked off the Jets practice squad onto the third string center, Connor McGovern, former Denver Broncos. So he's got a little bit of a revenge game going on here. Literally been with the team for a week. Sal DeVary starting at left guard. You've got Landon Young starting at right guard. Don't know who Landon Young is. The tackles have been playing really good football. Obviously, Fuaga and Penning have been playing pretty solid. But it's pretty much just Alvin Kamara versus the world. It's Bo Nix versus Spencer Rattler. So this is a very intriguing matchup, but just a banged up matchup. No Chris Olave, no Rashid Shaheed, no Patrick Surtain. All the star power, of the Saints offense and the Broncos defense seems to be out. So this is a tough one to pick, tough one to even, get excited for on Thursday night. But give me the Broncos. Give me Sean Payton and his revenge game coming back to New Orleans. He's had this one circled on the schedule for a while now. I think he gets it done in the end. This does feel like a trap game. I think it's close. I think Spencer Rattler kind of improved me last week. I could totally see him just throwing, just slinging the rock and actually doing pretty good here and just making it close. I'm not like taking his unders or anything. It could be a pretty good game. It feels like a trap game for the Broncos. There's so many injuries. No Surtain. That defense is a lot worse as we saw last week without Surtain. But give me the Broncos to, get it done. Like you said before we got on here, just seems like maybe they'll have like a game-winning drive and just the play calling and maybe Bo Nix's legs will get it done here.
Both scrambles, baby. But yeah, I am definitely taking the Broncos in this one. The Sean Payton revenge game, coming off of a division loss, they're pissed off, angry, and Vance Joseph blitzed Justin Herbert 60% of the time in that last game. And if he does something similar like that to Spencer Rattler, I fear Spencer Rattler may be another injured Saint. So, I don't think he's going to be as advanced as smart. The protection's not going to hold up against this good Broncos defense, and it's just going to be a long day. You have no Shaheed. You take off that deep factor. You don't even have Taysom Hill to come in and give a good change of pace, and keep the run honest. So it's going to be a rough outing for the Saints. Ultimately, I think the injuries are just too much to bear with. And again, I think Vance Joseph is the X factor in this. I think he's going to have some crazy blitz schemes, stunts, where it's just going to confuse the rookie quarterback. And I just can't see the Saints possibly, and their offense possibly doing much.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. Vance Joseph's blitz more than anyone in the NFL right now. He just blitzes the hell out of teams. So expect that this game. Going into fantasy, I don't know if Taysom Hill is officially out yet. It actually is a pretty big factor. If he plays, that is, a really hard person to game plan around. So game plan for. So Taysom Hill could be a big boost for the Saints team. I don't know if I'm really starting him in fantasy in this matchup coming off an injury. I think the only Saint that I'm starting outside of Kamara would be Bub Means in just a deep, deep league. I would throw a dart at Bub Means if you're just, down bad and need a deep cut. I think he's not bad. Maybe even Juwan Johnson, he'll get a lot of targets. For the Broncos, man, I don't think you want to start anyone. I mean, Sutton, Vele, Franklin, I think they're all about equal, and I wouldn't start any of them. Javonte Williams, he's coming off just a terrible week. I think I'm going to make a prediction. I think Audric Estime out of nowhere just takes over this running back room. I think he gets like 15 carries this week and just I think they've had enough of Javonte and Jalil just being terrible. So I think Estime would be like my stash play for this game, but I'm not starting any Broncos, honestly.
I was just gonna say, Dan, in the two games that Devon Bailey has played, 10 plus fantasy points in both of them. So
Yeah.
just
He's the
gonna say,
target, a PPR merchant.
yeah, so I'm just, maybe in deeper leagues, maybe I'm in, maybe in a dynasty aspect, I would not recommend to start Devon Vele, but just a fun name, and in the two games he's played this season, 8 targets, 6 targets, 8 receptions in his first game for 39 yards, and last week, 4 receptions on 6 targets for 78 yards. So Bo Nix likes to go to Devon Vele, so just somebody to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, could be a solid stash. Troy Franklin's finally coming off his first good NFL game. I think he had 7 catches and a touchdown, so he could maybe be a stash in a deep league. But with that, let's go on to the London game here. Let's go on to the 1-5 Patriots going into London to play the London Jaguars, who are also 1-5, coming off a loss in London last week to the Bears. The Jaguars are 5.5 point home favorites in this one, and this one's really tough for me to pick. I just am really drinking that Drake May Kool-Aid. He looked awesome last week against the Texans. He really kept him in it, 3 touchdowns. He was slinging the rock, made all the receivers look competent. I think I'm going to pick the Patriots in this one, man. 5.5 point underdogs going over to London, young team. I think Drake May slings the rock. I don't think that they have anything to lose here. The Jaguars, trading away Roy Robertson Harris. It feels like they're just giving up. It feels like Doug Peterson will get fired after this game. I think the plane home from London is going to be a rough one for the Jaguars. Give me the Patriots. I think I'm just too infatuated with Drake May. I love him too much. I was too high on him coming into the, draft. So maybe I'm just being a little bit biased here, but I have a feeling Drake May has a fun game here.
I absolutely love it. Drake May, against, his first NFL start against a really good Houston Texans football team, 243 yards to go along with 3 touchdowns, 5 rushing attempts for 38 yards. He was just, almost just kind of reminded me of of a young Josh Allen, man. He's just out there slinging the ball. Obviously, he had some boneheaded picks. There's a fumble you got to add in there, so the turnovers weren't great. But I did like his confidence. I liked his willingness to just go out there and push the ball down the field. Just kind of that, that relentless, that fearlessness of I don't care. We're gonna make this a game. We're gonna push the ball down the field, and we're gonna try and win. So I absolutely love the Drake May Kool-Aid. However, I think it's going to be a tough game to go to London to play the Jaguars, who've already been there for a couple weeks now. I think it's a long flight. This is not a great roster that's behind Drake May, and I think the Jaguars are just kind of in a YOLO must win. So, if Doug Peterson loses the game, I think he's 100%. They're leaving his ass in London. I think he's fired. However, I think he hangs on. I think the Jaguars just barely win this, and he still might be fired even if they win.
Yep, it'll be interesting to see how the team plays for Peterson. It's pretty obvious that this is like a make or break game for his career, really. So yeah, will be a really fun one. Obviously, not the most exciting matchup for London fans, 1-5 versus 1-5, but at least they get to see the exciting young Drake May, and hopefully Trevor can do some fun things with the exciting Brian Thomas Jr. Speaking of Brian Thomas Jr., let's go into fantasy. Obviously, you're starting Brian Thomas Jr. in really any league. Evan Ingram's kind of moving up to a must-start tight end. In this tight end economy, he looks awesome with all the targets that he got last week. So Evan Ingram, Brian Thomas, I'm firing up. Gabe Davis, it feels like such fool's gold. Don't pick up Gabe Davis. Do not start Gabe Davis. That's just chasing a game like last week that you're not going to get often. So I'm staying away from Gabe Davis fully. Christian Kirk, I'm not starting because it seems like Evan Ingram is taking all of those targets. So Christian Kirk is out for me. So for me, it's really just Ingram, Brian Thomas Jr., and then the running back in this game. ETN did practice in a limited fashion. If he goes, I guess you can start him maybe if you need to. If you have a different option, I would definitely pivot away from him. Tank Bigsby is a great start if he doesn't play, obviously. I'm not touching Dearness Johnson. I think that's it for the Jaguars. For the Patriots, though, Demario Douglas, man, Pop Douglas looked electric last week. I would definitely start him in a deeper league. He's a really good streaming option if you have a bye week or some injuries. I think Pop Douglas is going to be a great play this week. Ramondre would be a good play if he plays. He didn't practice today, so monitor Ramondre. I wouldn't be excited about Antonio Gibson unless you're really down bad. But for me, it's just Pop Douglas for the Patriots. Maybe Hunter Henry.
I was gonna say, very disappointed. Dan did, for some reason, get a waiver wire priority over me for Pop Douglas. It's been like the second week that for a waiver wire, Dan's least my dude. But yeah, Pop Douglas should be very exciting. He's had 3+ games with 9 targets, and with Drake May now starting at quarterback, his volume, his production should go way up. So if he's still available on your waiver wire, make sure you get him on your roster.
All right, we got a seeker split for this London game. Stores thinks that the team's going to rally for Peterson. I think that Peterson's going to be fired before the plane ride home to London. So definitely wake up early and watch that London game. We'll go on to the first of the 1 p.m. Sunday slate games, and this is the Seekers game of the week for sure. What a beautiful matchup. CJ Stroud and the 5-1 Texans go into Lambeau and play the 4-2 Packers, who are 2.5-point home favorites in this one. No clue how this game is not prime time. Makes zero sense, especially considering it's the Jets and Steelers on Sunday Night Football. This should definitely be Sunday Night Football, but it'll be so fun regardless. Watching with Red Zone on the multi-view. You got the white helmets, white uniforms for the Packers at Lambeau. It's going to be icy. This is a really tough one to pick for me because I do think the Texans are the better football team in this one. I think the Texans have a top 5 roster in the NFL right now. Obviously, CJ Stroud is just brilliant, but no Nico Collins, and it's just such a close matchup in Lambeau. No Nico Collins, who's really huge for this team. I think I am going to take the Packers in this one, and I'm fully acknowledging I think the Texans have the better roster. I just have a feeling in the whiteout uniforms in Lambeau, for some reason, I just have a feeling that they get the job done here. No Nico Collins. I think I'm going to pick the Packers. I just have a feeling, really.
I love it. I love you taking the. I mean, it kind of feels like Jordan Love could kind of have that kind of day where he just becomes the ultimate X factor. I can't go against my boy CJ Stroud right now. This Texans team is too hot. They're too good. They're so well balanced on every side of the ball. Special teams. Fairbairn is one of the best kickers in the league. DeMeco Ryans obviously coaches up one of the best defenses. I mean, they're just able to do everything at such an elite level with such, intelligent, coaches. And, CJ Stroud's just playing surgical, man. He's played surgical all year. I don't care. Nico Collins is out. You still got Tank Dell. You still got Stephon Diggs, Dalton Schultz, Joe Mixon. Hell of a game. 105 rushing yards on 12 carries to go along with 30 receiving yards and two touchdowns. So he was electric. But this team's hot, man. I think, I'm gonna say it right now. I was, earlier in the season, I thought the Bills were the best team in the NFL. I think the Texans and the Vikings, are my in my power rankings my 1 and 2 right now, and I think the Texans honestly are number one just because of how balanced they are.
That's electric. I think we both have two different top two teams then, because I think mine would be the Ravens and Lions. So that just kind of shows you how fun this NFL season is. Really, anyone could win the Super Bowl this year. So, yeah, I do like that though. I think the Texans are easily top five. They're just so well oiled on offense and defense. Joe Mixon looks better than any Bengals Joe Mixon last week. I mean, he just looks so explosive, and I did not expect that really from him coming into the season. So, shout out to Joe Mixon for sure. Going into fantasy, don't really need to talk about this game because you just start all these options. It's going to be one of the more higher scoring games of the week. Obviously, I don't even need to talk about the lock starts. Maybe the fringe starts I'll talk about. I don't even think there's fringe starts because, like, for the Texans, Tank Dell, you're starting Joe Mixon. There's no fringe starts really. I'm not starting Dalton Schultz. For the Packers, you kind of want to start any of these receivers. I would start Romeo Dobbs. I would start Christian Watson. Obviously, you're starting Jaden Reed and Josh Jacobs. Tucker Kraft coming off a little bit of a bad game, but I think you just have to ride him out because that's just how this offense is. This is like the 49ers. The Packers are literally the 49ers. They just have so many weapons. They're just going to spread it out every week, and you kind of just have to ride out all these options, and they're going to get there by the end of the season. They're all going to get theirs. So I think you're just riding it out with all these options. Dontavian Wicks is really the only bench I have for the Packers, and this is going to be a fun game. Target and fantasy. Take the overs and betting. It's going to be electric.
Yeah, 100%. I'm looking forward to having this in my multi-view. So it's a multi-view game of the week.
Absolutely. Seekers game of the week. Have this on in your multi-view. We have a split here, so you definitely have to watch it. Let's go on to the next game. Another electric matchup.
Ooh.
Two teams that we both mentioned as top two teams in the NFL, just barely. The 4-1 Detroit Lions are going to go into Minnesota and play the 5-0 Vikings. Vikings are 2-point home favorites in this one. Just an insane game, insane matchup. Donald versus Goff, who are both playing damn near MVP type football. It's going to be so fun. Obviously, the Lions' run game has been like legendary, iconic. It's really, it seems like it can't possibly be stopped. Maybe the Vikings' run defense, which is probably the best in the NFL, will kind of limit it, but it just feels like this Lions' run game is just so dominant that it's going to be really hard for this Vikings defense to stop this Lions offense. Personally, for me, I got to pick the Lions just because I think their offense is just too good to be stopped by literally even the best defense in the NFL. The Vikings have looked awesome every single week, but I just gotta pick this run game. Goff, Ben Johnson pushes all the right buttons in the pass game with Amon-Ra. Obviously, that trick play to Laporta. Jamison Williams looks completely dominant. Just maybe this will be a bad game for him in this matchup, but he's been looking so great all season. So I just got to go with the Lions, even though this Vikings team looks awesome. Monitor Aaron Jones as well. He's going to be a big X factor in this one. It could be Ty Chandler and newly traded for Cam Akers in the backfield with no Aaron Jones. So he's a big X factor in this one as well.
I think this is the best offense in the NFL versus the best defense in the NFL. I think that's like this is like the best matchup you could possibly dice up. And even, like I just said, the Vikings are number 2 in my power rankings. I'm having so much trouble because it just feels hard. They're coming off of a bye week, which is good, but I feel like, for a team that's as hot as the Vikings, I don't know if a bye week is good this early. It feels like, you just want to be playing fresh every week. So I almost feel like I don't know if that even benefits them. Oh, it's just this is hard, man. I don't know. I don't know who to pick. I'll go with the best defense in the NFL. I think they'll be able to pressure Jared Goff and make him just uncomfortable. They're not going to be able to stop this offense, but Sam Darnold's got a healthy Jordan Addison. He's got a healthy Justin Jefferson. TJ Hawkinson, I don't know if he's playing. His window is open to play. He might play, he might not play, but that could be a potentially a big X factor in this game too.
Revenge
But
game too.
yeah, revenge game versus the Lions. I mean, this how is this not a game of the week? How is this not a Sunday night? This should be Sunday night football. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. This should be the Sunday night game this week. They should have flexed it, but this is the game of the week right here. This is just too perfect. The best defense in the NFL versus the best offense. It'll be another seeker split. Better be on your multi-view. Better be on the whole time. But yeah, I just can see Justin Jefferson making enough plays and the Vikings defense of Brian Flores slowing down Jared Goff just enough.
Yep, this is definitely the Seekers, co-game of the week. Definitely the Seekers matchup of the week. Going into fantasy, you just want to target this game because it's going to be high scoring. These teams are going to be chasing each other as good as the Vikings defense is. I do think the Vikings will need to put up some points because this Lions offense is just too good. I think it's the best offense in the NFL. So if I'm the Vikings, TJ Hawkinson's a hard one coming off the injury. If you have to start him, you can. Maybe wait because he could be a little bit limited in this game, maybe like not playing a full snap count in this one, but you can start him, honestly. The Vikings offense will have to be chasing that insane Lions offense. Obviously, you can start Addison, Jettas, Aaron Jones if he plays. If not, Ty Chandler's a great start, in my opinion. And then for the Lions, don't need to talk about it. You start every single Lion. Sam Laporte is getting a little bit suspect territory. If you have like an Evan Ingram, I'm probably starting Evan Ingram over him, but I mean, it's a kind of a hard luxury to have at this tight end economy right now. So you're starting every line, starting every Viking. Don't really need to talk about it in this game.
It's just a perfect game, man. It's going to be two great coaches, two great teams, and like I said, the number one offense versus the number one defense. What's better than that?
Incredible coaching in this game. Ben Johnson, Dan Campbell, Brian Flores, Kevin O'Connell. Incredible matchup, divisional matchup as well in the NFC North. But let's go on to the next game. The 3-3 Seattle Seahawks come kind of reeling, coming off three losses, are going into Atlanta to play the 4-2 Falcons, who are hot. So kind of a cold team versus a hot team here. The hot Atlanta Falcons with 3-point home favorites in this one, and they are rolling. That offense is really rolling. They're looking like one of the top offenses in the NFL. They have one of the highest implied team point totals in the NFL this week. So I do expect them to have a pretty good game at home here offensively, not defensively. That defense is much superstars and star talent that they have. They have been struggling. So I do think the Seahawks have a pretty good game in offense as well. Another game you need to target in fantasy. But in this shootout, I am going to pick the Falcons at home here. I'm going to ride with the hot hand instead of the cold team and go with the Falcons. Kirk Cousins has looked incredible. Drake London has looked like a top 5 receiver in the NFL, exactly how we thought he would look coming into the season. He's finally getting that usage and looking like that superstar. So shout out to Drake London. I think Tyler Algier, Bijan Robinson are looking like one of the best running back duos in the NFL. Crazy 1-2 punch. They're trying to make it like that Lions running back duo. So give me the Falcons. I think that their defensive superstar talent will kind of come through in the end. Maybe Jesse Bates, Justin Simmons, someone will get a pick in the end, and I think it's gonna be fun. Another barn burner game.
I could see this being like the two highest passing. I could see Geno and Kirk Cousins both throwing for like 400 yards in this one. I feel like it is going to be a shootout. This should be a pretty exciting game. And I'm right on the same page with you. I'm going to agree with you. I think the Falcons are the little bit hotter team. I think they are better. I think they're really starting to find that chemistry. Obviously, it was a new coaching staff, a new quarterback, a new regime there in Atlanta. And it seems like it's just finally starting to click. That offense is starting to come together. You saw Bijan last week finally have that breakout game fantasy managers have been begging for. Kirk Cousins is just playing surgical. Drake London is now looking like that top 10 receiver in the NFL and especially in fantasy. So I love it. I love this team. They're heating up at the right time. They're getting hot at the right time. And I feel like, as we're saying that, I feel like Seattle's kind of cooling down. I feel like it'll still be a competitive, very edgy game. Obviously, you have Mike McDonald, so your defense is always going to be so difficult to go against. But yeah, I'm riding Kirk Cousins. I'm riding this hot Falcons team.
Yeah, it really is hot versus cold in this one, and just two insane offenses this season who have been putting up crazy numbers. Going into fantasy, going off of that, these teams have been putting up crazy numbers. You kind of just target this game. You start all these options. The Falcons defense has allowed a lot of yards. Same with the Seahawks. They both allowed a lot of points. So really don't need to talk about this one as well because you're starting everyone. Their only fringe options would be like Tyler Algier. You could even maybe start him in a really deep league. Obviously, you're starting all of the Falcons starters. Even maybe Ray McLeod could be a nice start throw in the flex. And then obviously Mooney, London, Bijan are locks. And then for the Seahawks, your lock receivers. Maybe Lockett could be a play in this game, in this matchup. You want to chase the yards, chase the high points. JSN's obviously a lock at this point, and then K9 and DK are locks as well. So this is just a fun, high-powered superstar offensive matchup.
Do you think Noah Fant is a good waiver wire pickup if somebody needs a flex tight end? He did go 6 for 6 for 63 yards at 12.3 fantasy points. I what do you make of Noah Fant? Is he even worth touching? Do you leave him on? Do you leave him on the waiver wire? Do you go snag him?
Yeah, you have to be pretty down bad, honestly. You can't expect like 6 targets, though. He gets 6 targets around every week. So I could totally see him getting 6 for 60 again. And, that's not a bad play in this economy. But I would probably prefer a Kate Otten or something like that against the Ravens. But, you could play him. It's not the worst play in the world this specific week. Rest of the season, I don't really care about him, though.
Okay, I 100% agree with you.
All right. With that, let's go on to the next game, a divisional matchup here, the NFC East matchup. The 3-2 Eagles are going to go into New York, play the 2-4 and Giants. 3 point. The Giants are 3 point underdogs at home in this one. And that makes sense, coming off a pretty abysmal offensive performance at home against the Bengals, who their Bengals defense has been really, really bad before that week. So I do think that the Eagles kind of come in here doesn't look pretty because that Browns game, the Eagles did not make that look pretty at all. But in the Saquon Barkley revenge game, I'm going to go with the Eagles here. I think Saquon gets his revenge and has quite the day on the ground, even though it will be hard because Dexter Lawrence is playing like a defensive player of the year at this point. He's been one of the best defensive players in the NFL this season. So it's going to be hard to get there, but I do think Saquon has a nice game, maybe a few touchdowns in this revenge game in New York. Give me the Eagles, but just AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. AJ Brown looked fantastic last week, looking like one of the alpha superstar best receivers in the NFL. I will go with the Eagles. I don't love it. Like this Eagles team looks exactly like it did last year. What's the coincidence? It's Nick Sirianni. What does he do? That's what we said every single week last year. What does Nick Sirianni do? And it's the same thing. They just looked the exact same, kind of had a sweaty game against the Browns. He was talking his crap to the Eagles fans after that. Like one of the worst teams in the NFL. Crazy, crazy stuff. But I will pick the Eagles here just because I think their roster is better. And the Giants did not impress me on Sunday Night Football last week.
Yeah, I'm right with you there. And also, yeah, I mean, you're getting Malik Neighbors back, which is good for this game. But overall, this Eagles team is just going to be a little bit too overpowered. But I mean, I can't even, the Giants are playing impressive. Brian DeBall just hasn't playing above their weight class. I mean, they're fighting above their weight class in every single game. That defense versus the Bengals last week was pretty awesome. I mean, I can't compliment him enough. Between Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence, I mean, you held the Bengals to 10 points, pretty much that entire game until you just finally, your offense just could not do anything. And it just, eventually was the downfall for your defense. But yeah, I mean, it should be actually a pretty scrappy game. Like, I feel like this is going to be a close game. I feel like this could be another game that comes down to the wire. But yeah, just on the Eagles side of the ball, you got a healthy AJ Brown back and Devontae Smith and hopefully Dallas Goedert, is back this week. But yeah, I just think this Eagles team is just a little too talented, and also it's a Saquon Barkley revenge game, so I feel like that is ultimately the X factor.
Yeah, it does feel like he's definitely going to score in this one, maybe in a few times. That kind of feels like the difference here, coming to his division opponent, division rival Eagles, and now he's facing off with the Giants. That is kind of the X factor for me as well. Going into fantasy, I do have a few questions. If Dallas Goedert doesn't go, he didn't practice today, would you start Calcaterra, or is that just way too deep of a cut?
I think that's way too deep of a cut, and especially when you have all these Austins already, where Calcaterra's got to, somehow find some targets over AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Saquon Barkley. I think that's just way too deep. At that point, I would even just, go get that Noah Fan off the waiver wires and start him.
Yeah, I've been seeing some hype for him, but I kind of agree with that as well. I would go for a fan or an and rest of the Eagles, we don't need to talk about. You're starting the superstars, and it's very cut and dry with the Eagles, starting Hurts as well. For the Giants, though, I do have another question. If Singletary and Tracy both play, it looks like Singletary practice. So if they both are healthy, it seems like it's going to be a split. Are you just not starting either of them, or how do you feel about that?
Oh, that definitely does muddy the backfield and make it kind of gross. I have been so impressed with Tracy.
Oh,
Obviously in the two games, you can't just, I mean, 18 for 129 versus the Seahawks. Then he goes 17 for 50 and a touchdown to go along with six receptions for 57 yards. I think he is the better running back. I really hope he does, take that running back one role. But this particular week, I don't love the matchup. I don't love probably what the game script is going to be. So I would honestly stay away from both of them this week until we see, the true role of each running back when they're both playing together.
yeah, I agree. If they both play, then sadly it's pretty tough to play them. But I do agree Tracy is the better running back. He's just so explosive. He looks awesome. He looks like a borderline star. He definitely has earned a role here, and definitely roster him. And by end of season, he could be a start here and completely take over the backfield. And then you're starting neighbors. You're starting Wandale Robinson in a PPR league, and that is it in this game. Anything else you want to say on this?
No, back-to-back 11 target games from Darius Slayton.
Yep.
Do you make anything of that, or now that Neighbors is back, you just fade him completely?
Yeah, Slayton feels like a complete dart throw at this point with neighbors playing. It's like a deep ball or, deep touchdown or bust. So I wouldn't play him in this one. But yeah, Wandale Robinson, second in the NFL in targets. That is pretty dang crazy.
Yeah, that is Wandale Robinson is a PPR hero this year, so you were able to snatch him off the waiver wires. He's still available in about 28% of ESPN leagues. If you're one of those leagues that doesn't have him, you should definitely pick him up.
Yep, absolutely. With that, let's go on to the next game. That graphic is messed up. That is not the Steelers. The Miami Dolphins are going to go into Indianapolis and play the 3-3 Colts. The Colts are 3-point favorites in this one over the Dolphins, not the Steelers. It is the Dolphins. Graphics guy totally messed up on that one. But Anthony Richardson is back in this game, sadly. I mean, I kind of say sadly because it muddies everything for fantasy. It makes it a lot less exciting. Obviously, when Joe Flacco was announced that he was playing last week, all the fantasy options got really exciting. All the underdog lines moved drastically up because that's just kind of how Flacco plays. He will play with the offensive output. But give me the Colts in this one still, even with Anthony Richardson. Tyler Huntley just has not looked great. Coming off a bye, maybe the Dolphins figure some things out. Maybe they have a nice run game. Maybe they feed Achane, Mostert, and Jalen Wright, and maybe they just run the hell out of the ball. But I still think that the Colts offense will get it done. Josh Downs has looked like their wide receiver one better than Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman should be playing. Jonathan Taylor might be back. This might be the game that you get Jonathan Taylor back. But give me the Colts. But regardless of the quarterback, I do think they'll be able to win this one. The Dolphins defense hasn't looked too good. So I'm going to take the Colts here. And sadly, Anthony Richardson's playing.
That is a bummer. It really is, especially from a Josh Downs fantasy owner. I've been loving the last 3 weeks. I've been living good off of it. It's won me some games. But man, that really, really does stink. However, Dan, do you know who the Colts wide receiver one on the season is?
Is it Downs? Oh, Alec Pierce?
Yeah, Alec Pierce still has the most fantasy points of all the Colts wide receivers. He's the only one that's really not rostered, but he is the one. Obviously, he had those couple boom weeks, and he does have that chemistry with Anthony Richardson. But yeah, believe it or not, Alec Pierce has the most fantasy points of any Colts wide receiver right now. And then surprisingly, Michael Pittman and then Josh Downs at the number three spot. But Josh Downs obviously missed a couple of games,
Mm.
but has absolutely been on fire the last 3 weeks. But if Anthony Richardson comes back, I am absolutely heartbroken. I am sad. I'm scared of all these Colts options now. However, in this game, I do believe that the Colts are the better team. I feel like, they'll go and, Miami without Tua is just rough. Surprisingly, Tua is a good enough point guard. I don't think he's a great quarterback, but he is a good point guard for this offense. He has the rhythm and the timing of this offense down where these other backup quarterbacks don't. They're not playing with any rhythm. You know, the receivers are just pretty much irrelevant in these games. It's just it's so funny. It's just such a system, and you just have to have the right pieces in that system for it to work. And if one of those pieces is not there, I feel like just the entire system crashes. And so it's so reliant on all key pieces being there. And yeah, with that being said, I think the Colts, will handle this one easy.
Yep, it'll maybe be a kind of close game, just low scoring, but they will come away with it at home. They usually play pretty well at home. Going into fantasy, it's really tough. It's a kind of tough conversation for all these Colts guys. I think you're still starting Josh Downs and just hoping that Anthony Richardson targets him like 8 times and hoping that he gets a maybe into the end zone. Hopefully, Anthony Richardson can be more accurate in the intermediate game, which he's really struggled. But Josh Downs has looked awesome. He's the sixth highest graded receiver in PFF right now. Kind of just got to start him. Michael Pittman, like you said, that's pretty embarrassing that he's being out produced in fantasy by Alec Pierce. He's probably pretty close in production with Josh Downs, who's missed like a month. So
Mhm.
that's pretty embarrassing. Michael Pittman's had a big letdown season. I wouldn't want to start him unless you're really, really desperate. I think for me, it's really just Josh Downs and then Jonathan Taylor or maybe Trey Sermon if you're pretty desperate. But it's pretty rough for the Colts, man.
It is. It is. It has been pretty rough out there, and Anthony Richardson's season has just been, just as disappointing as possibly can be from a guy who, people were throwing out Josh Allen type, you know, comps with him, just this athletic, incredible, arm talented quarterback, and yet, he's just so terribly inaccurate, in this system, and he's so injury prone. So it's like all your worst fears with Anthony Richardson, kind of showed themselves, and they really came to light. And so he's got to prove us. He's got to prove us different. He's got to come in here. He's got to be more on time. He's got to be more precise with his throw. He's just got to be a better quarterback. And until that, the Colts are just are a pretty boring, irrelevant team. But however, in this matchup, it does favor them having no Tua. So I think they are the winners of this game, but I don't think they're the winners of any season.
Yeah, absolutely. End of story. It just really muddies things in fantasy. On to the Dolphins. You got to start Achan. You got to start Tyreek Hill. Super unfortunate that there's no Tua. Hopefully, you get him back within the next 2, 3 weeks, but I think that's the only two starts. Jalen Waddle is a little bit too desperate for me. And I think that is it in fantasy. I think it's just those two Dolphins, pretty much the two Colts. And this should be a low scoring, not too exciting game. Sorry about the graphics guy messing up. The graphics guy needs to stop doing these graphics way too late at night. He was doing it this like 1 a.m. last night. So sorry about that. But we'll go on to the next game. The 1-4 Tennessee Titans are going into Buffalo playing the 4-2 Bills. The Bills are 9-point favorites at home in this one, the biggest line of the week. And we don't need to talk about this one for too long. The Bills are going to win this football game. Will Amari Cooper play in this game? Doesn't matter. The Bills are going to win this football game. Bills Mafia is going to be popping at home. They got the home field advantage. Will Levis is due for some, boneheaded mistakes, some memeable mistakes as he's on track to do every single week this season. I think the Bills are like my number one defensive streaming play this week in fantasy. Start with the Bills defense and don't really need to say much. Obviously, you're starting all the Bills options in fantasy. I just think the Bills are going to win this game pretty handily. Titans are really just Tony Pollard against the world.
Yeah, not much to talk about, but the Amari Cooper trade is the biggest headline of this game. You know, I think it was we gotta speak a little bit on it. I think it was a perfect move. You go to a desperate Cleveland organization, you go steal their best player, best wide receiver, and it's Josh Allen obviously has been playing great football. He's obviously been lacking that wide receiver one. He still plays great without a wide receiver one, but this should ultimately take this team to a newer height. Just having that alpha where a team's just got to go account for, and having a guy where you can just throw it up and know he's going to make a play. The Bills team obviously went into the season without any alpha wide receivers, and credit to where credit's due. They saw a weakness and they went and addressed it. They're still a 4-2 football team, but it just made them a whole lot more dangerous and just a perfect player to come in here and play with Josh Allen. I'm just so excited to see the end result of Amari Cooper and Josh Allen together.
Yeah, I mean, you summed it up perfectly. It's just the perfect fit. They're going to have a great chemistry. He complements the receiver room perfectly. I was watching a Marlon Humphreys podcast, and he said that when they played the Bills, the defense didn't watch tape on the Bills receivers. They didn't game plan against the Bills receivers. They just watched tape on Josh Allen, and then they watched tape on James Cook in the run game, and then they watched tape on James Cook in the receiving game. They literally just game plan for Josh Allen and James Cook. I don't even know if they were fearful about Kincaid. So this definitely changes things. It makes this offense a lot more complementary. I think there will be a pretty good connection here with Josh Allen and Amari Cooper. Will it be this week? I don't know. In fantasy, I wouldn't be like too excited to start Amari Cooper. Not even sure if he plays in this one. If he does, I don't think that they really need to feed him that much because they're playing the Titans and they could just run this game, run the ball. I think Ray Davis and James Cook could just win this game by themselves. And this one, as good as T'Vondre Sweat has been, but yeah, I think that's kind of how it is. It's a great trade for the Bills. I mean, how exciting is that? Fantasy wise, you're just starting Pollard for the Titans. You don't want to mess with those receivers right now. For the Bills, you're starting Khalil Shakir, maybe Kincaid, maybe if you're desperate at tight end, which a lot of people are. So you're probably starting him, and then James Cook if he plays. If not, Ray Davis is a smash play. But I think that's about it, unless you want to start Amari Cooper.
Yeah, you summed that up perfectly. Just how exciting, man. How exciting for Bills Mafia. Just what a superstar coming to this organization at the right time as your team, is 4-2 and just desperately needs that help. Just exciting news.
Yeah, big trade for the Bills. They got their guy. We'll go on to the next game. The 2-4 Bengals are going to go into Cleveland, play the 1-5 Browns in the Ohio Bowl here. Short travel for the Bengals. The Bengals are 5.5 point road favorites in this one. And I won't waste your time in this one as well. I think Nick Chubb in his return has a pretty fun game. I think they actually give him a pretty big workload as well because there will be no Jerome Ford in this one. It looks like he's going to be out. So I think that Nick Chubb actually has a pretty big workload in his return. Should be fun. I mean, he is literally the heartbeat of this Browns offense for the last, what it feels like, decade. He's just literally this Browns offense. So it's pretty huge that they get him back. They always play the Bengals really tough. That being said, I got to pick the Bengals, though. They didn't look great against the Giants, but their defense did step it up. I think their defense can dominate Deshaun Watson, and obviously this offense is just awesome. T. Higgins looks like a superstar. He looks awesome this season. Jamar Chase might be the best receiver in the NFL right now. He looks awesome. I just see the Bengals really popping. Chase Brown taking over that RB1 role. He looks explosive as hell. So I do think the Bengals just have too much star power, and they're going to go into the dog pound and get the W.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Two very underwhelming football teams to say the least coming out of the AFC North. I mean, you'd have told us, 7 weeks into the season that, the Browns are 1-5 and the Bengals are 2-6. I would have said no way. This is the AFC North. This is the bloodbath. This is the toughest division in football. But man, I mean, what a weird, you know what a weird series we're in of football right now, as we're sitting at this with these two teams' records. But like you said, and you summed it up, the Bengals are the better football team. There's a clear quarterback difference between the two. You've got one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and you got one of the worst quarterbacks, and if not I think the worst quarterback. I think we can confidently say Deshaun Watson is the worst quarterback in the NFL. I mean, I can't believe this organization. I get it. You just committed treason by giving him $250 million of guaranteed money, so you feel too foolish to bench him and to cut him off your team. But he is a I mean, he's just a toxic ball in your organization, and your franchise is just going to go downhill unless you can get rid of him. They need to figure out a way to get off him, eat the dead cap, do something because he is just bringing this organization down in flames.
I mean, the vibes are just terrible with Deshaun Watson. He doesn't even look like he cares. The team's just not buying in with him. Literally, the vibes are just the worst I've ever seen in a pro sports team. It's pretty incredible how bad it is. Obviously, if you injected Jameis Winston in here, it would be a lot more exciting. And I'd maybe even consider picking the Browns with Jameis Winston. And I'm not picking the Browns rest of season until they do make that switch, until they swallow that pride and take their losses. So that being said, in fantasy, how are you feeling about wide receiver one rest of season, Jerry Jeudy? Are you playing him? You just benching him until you get some
Mention everyone except Nick Chubb because Nick Chubb is an animal, one of the best running backs in the NFL, and this team will need to revolve around Nick Chubb. Everyone else on the Browns rest of the season they're not even rosterable at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can roster Judy and Njoku in case one of them just becomes just someone that just gets hyper targeted. Maybe Jameis Winston comes in here and really injects some upside for fantasy. But yeah, like you said, it really logically, I don't think you should be starting Nick Chubb, but you can just kind of feel a good Nick Chubb game. You can feel like a touchdown from Nick Chubb. Just, the vibes are there for Nick Chubb. You can just see it having a good return, from the gruesome injury. I could just totally see it. So if you want to start Nick Chubb, totally fine with that. Obviously, if you have a stacked running back room, you could wait it out. For the Bengals, you're starting all the Bengals options. Don't need to talk about it. Obviously, you're not starting the tight ends or, Yosavas. You're really just starting Higgins, Chase, Burrow and Chase Brown. I'm not starting Zach Moss, and I think that's about it for this one.
Yeah, summed it up perfectly.
All right, let's go on to the afternoon slate for Sunday. The 1-5 Panthers are going to go into Washington, play the 4-2 Commanders, who are 8-point home favorites in this one. A big line here. Respect to the Commanders. They've been playing awesome. I expect their defense to play pretty solid in this one. I expect their offense to keep clicking. They gave the Ravens some troubles. They looked pretty sharp on offense last week. Get my pick right out of the way. Don't need to talk about this game too long. I will pick the Commanders here. They just look like a much better football team. They look like a top football team in the NFL. They actually have the highest implied team point total of any team. So this offense is projected to score the most of any team this week. So start all the Commanders possible in your fantasy leagues and just target this game in fantasy because the Panthers will be chasing as well. But Terry McLaurin, Brian Robinson, Jaden Daniels, fire them up. They're going to have a great game here.
Yeah, this, it was some Andy Dalton miracle, versus the Raiders with that 320-yard game and three touchdowns. And now you're starting to see, him regress to the mean of what Andy Dalton really is. And then, yeah, on the other side of the football, you've got the youngest, hottest, greatest, thing since sliced bread, Jaden Daniels, who's just playing flawless football, man, putting up points. This whole team, Adam Peters is looking like executive of the year. Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, who would have known just a resurgence from Cliff Kingsbury just has his offense just rolling on all diameters. I mean, it's just an exciting team that, has a different style of offense and it's working, Even Austin Eckler looks rejuvenated. Terry McLaurin is, one of the best receivers in football, especially fantasy football right now. It's an exciting Commanders team. And it's going to be hard to pick against them, man. They score points on every drive. They're so flawless. Dan Campbell has been a great coach. He's coaching up this. I mean, it's well rounded. It's well circulated. They're a well-oiled machine and a team that we couldn't have been any more wrong on during the offseason. But yeah, really proving everyone wrong. Really proving us doubters wrong. And yeah, easy pick for me. They'll come in here. They'll handle this game, no problem.
By far the team that we were the most wrong about this whole offseason. Terribly wrong, honestly. I think everyone was, to be honest, though. Just incredible stuff from everyone, from every level. The coaching, the draft picks, the players are just playing incredible football. Going on to fantasy, Terry McLaurin, Jaden Daniels, you're starting. Brian Robinson Jr. is starting. If he plays, I think you can even start Austin Eckler if he plays. If he doesn't play, Austin Eckler is a huge smash play. You're just targeting all these guys. You can start Zach Ertz in this specific matchup. Luke McCaffrey could even be a stash with how good this offense is. And then on the other side, that team, the Panthers team, is going to be chasing because they're going to be down all game against this high-powered offense. They're going to be down big. So I do expect Deontay Johnson to have a good game. I expect Xavier Leggett to be a good start in this one. Looks like Jonathan Brooks was designated to return. I don't think he plays in this one. So Chuba Hubbard's a really borderline top 10 running back again this week. So I think there's going to be some pretty good offensive firepower production for fantasy in this one.
Yeah, 100%. Should be from a fantasy aspect, awesome. Like you said, are you confident in starting Leggett week in and week out moving forward?
It's more matchup dependent, but in this matchup, this might be the best matchup he has all season. Bad secondary in a game that they're going to be chasing the entire game. They're going to need to pass. So I think this is a great matchup for the good. I'm
Yeah,
starting him in a lot
100%.
of leagues.
Yeah, 100% agree. And yeah, Deontay Johnson, whoever drafted him in fantasy football, loving their life right now because he is absolutely getting fed in this Panthers offense. But like you said, should be a really good game script for fantasy football.
Yeah, my worst pick of our fantasy draft was taking Calvin Ridley over Deontay Johnson. I had them ranked right next to each other. What an idiot. But going on to the next game, the 2-4 Vegas Raiders are going to go into LA and play the 1-4 Rams. The Rams are 6.5-point favorites at home. And I mean, I got to go with the Rams. Are the Rams 1-4 or did the did the graphics guy mess this one up? Because I don't think the Rams are 1-4.
Um,
Let me check here because I might just be completely. Wow, the Rams are 1-4. I feel like I'm living in like a different universe right now. What?
you
I
know what? I think this might be a Mandela effect.
I could have sworn the Rams have won more than one game this season. Like, I don't know
What has the
why.
Rams schedule been this year?
I mean,
We
coming
have
off a bye, maybe that's why we're forgetting, but
lost in overtime to the Lions 26-20. They really lose to the. Oh yeah, that was Marvin Harrison Jr.'s game, 41-10 versus the Cardinals.
Barely to the 49ers.
Yeah, they really beat the 49ers
Oh yeah.
27-24. Lost to the Bears, lost to the Packers. Wow.
I mean,
I
that's a
think it's
tough
kind of
schedule.
that is a brutal schedule. Now the Vikings up next and Seahawks. Geez, and then you're gonna get a healthy Tua Dolphins. Yeah, that's pretty brutal for the Rams and Sean McVay. I don't think I would ever believe Sean McVay would be 1-4. This has got to be some kind of Mandela effect. If you are in some kind of different, you know, multiverse and this is a Mandela effect, just give us a sign. Just give us a sign.
Yeah, that completely threw me off because I actually did not. I thought the graphics guy messed up. I don't know why. I thought the Rams have won more than one game, but you're slowly starting to get your guys back. Cooper Kupp might play in this game. You're starting to get some of them offensive linemen back. Puka Nacua might be back within the next month. So slowly starting to get your guys back. Obviously, some wins would be nice to, urge those guys to come back. But like I said, a few weeks ago, I'm not picking Vegas until Antonio Pierce gets fired. I do think the Rams get a W here. The Mandela effect stops, and I do think the Rams get their second win here at home against this terrible Raiders team, against the guy that's in the same tier as Deshaun Watson by themselves as the shit tier of quarterbacks. Aiden O'Connell, he's not a pro quarterback. I mean, we all know that. Tom Brady was appointed as an owner of this team just so they could find their future quarterback. Cough, cough, shitter Sanders probably because they have ties. But I'm not picking Antonio Pierce. He's an unserious coach. Give me the Rams, a real serious coach, and Sean McVay and Stafford and Kyron and maybe Cooper Kupp, Whittington. Give me the Rams.
You Seekers fans still with us this far into the video, and we're talking about the Mandela effect. The Fruit of the Loom t-shirt have the Capricorn or not? Tell us what you think. Do you remember that? Because I do. I do
It
remember
is.
the Capricorn. Do you remember that Capricorn?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, me too. That's always been the one that tripped me out the most because apparently there was never a Capricorn. Apparently there never was, but I remember. I think I have some t-shirts with that somewhere. Somewhere that I donated to DI 20 years ago. But if you're with us and you believe in that Mandela effect, let me
Let us
know.
know.
Yeah, you're still with us this far, into the Rams and Raiders. Give stores a little Mandela effect.
Yeah, Capricorn or not in the comments. Going into fantasy though, for the Raiders, it's Brock Bowers against the world. You're starting Brock Bowers. He's tied in one rest of season with no Davante Adams. You can start Jacoby Myers in this one as well. He will be the Davante Adams replacement. I'm not starting Trey Tucker unless you're in a very crazy deep league where you just want a dart throw or maybe a DFS league. I'm not really looking for Trey Tucker though. Those are the only two for me. Not touching the running backs for the Rams. You're starting. Obviously, Kyron, you're starting Cooper Kupp if he plays, unless you're in like an 8-man league and you have a lot of options. I think you can wait and see if he stays healthy for this week. But I think you got to start Cooper Kupp. I think Whittington's still a great play, even with Kupp back. I think Whittington's kind of the second guy I want in this offense. And I don't think I'm touching Parkinson or Tutu this week.
It's Bernstein Bears or Bernstein Bears? Another Mandela effect question.
Berenstein. Berenstein,
I
for
don't
sure.
even know which one's the right one. I think it was the Bernstein Bears. I think it
I
was
think
always
so.
Bernstein. I can't remember. A lot of people say Bernstein or Bernstein. Another Mandela one. But yeah, Rams are gonna win this game. Raiders are so unserious. Brock Bowers is dog. Won't matter. Won't matter. The team sucks. Team's unserious. Davante Adams is gone. Kyron and Matthew Stafford should eat, and Sean McVay should definitely cook up some stuff against Antonio Pierce to get this Rams to a nice 2-4 record.
Yep, it'll be Brock Bowers versus the world, but we'll get off the Mandela effect game. We'll go on to the last afternoon game. The 5-0 Kansas City Chiefs are going to go into San Fran, play the 3-3 49ers, who are 1.5 point home favorites in this one. A very close spread, almost a pick 'em. And this kind of is a pick 'em game. I named this one the coin flip of the week for the Seekers this week. It's going to be a very close one, a tough one to pick. Still don't entirely know, but I mean, I picked against the Chiefs against the Saints. That made me look stupid. I'm picking against them again, though. I'm going to pick the 49ers. I just think, I don't know, the Chiefs just aren't as impressive as usual this year for me. I think, an offense with Juju Smith-Schuster, Kareem Hunt, it's almost comical that they're just Travis Kelce, who looks like an uncle out there. Like, it really is almost comical what they're rolling out with and still undefeated. Patrick Mahomes is just the best ever. It's crazy stuff, honestly. Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are just crazy. But I do think the 49ers just have too much star talent at home. I do think they prevail. They always play so good at home in these type of games. I do think Brock Purdy has an awesome game. He's looked pretty awesome this year, and I do think they get the job done even without CMC. I think the 49ers get it done.
Yeah, this one, I'm just I'm gonna have to say sorry, Jake Tay, but I'm gonna use a little reverse psychology in this, and I'm gonna say I think it's time that the Chiefs are due for a loss, but I'm gonna pick the Chiefs because I'm not gonna pick against them until they lose. I want to like try and put some weird juju out there, for a Chiefs loss. So I am gonna pick them, for the greater good of the Chargers organization. So I'm gonna put that in the air. Um, and I feel like, if I pick them, it gives them a better chance of actually losing. So I'm going to sacrifice one game for my record to try and get a loss on the Chiefs board. If that makes any sense to any of you out there right now,
It does.
I'm
Stores
gonna
is
I'm gonna
sacrificing. He's
I'm
using his
trying to big brain this one, but surely the Chiefs are due for a loss. But I'm not picking against them until they actually do lose. So I'm going to pick the Chiefs in this one.
Yeah, Stores is for all sacrificing for everyone out there. He's using his witch voodoo to pick or for the Chiefs to lose. He's definitely got that Stores luck. So hopefully it comes through. Hopefully the Chiefs get their first loss in what seems like years at this point. But yeah, I do think the Niners just have so much talent. Kittle's playing like the best tight end in the NFL. Going into fantasy, obviously Kittle is just a crazy, crazy play. Go trade for Kittle. Debo Samuel, Ayuk, you probably have to start. Juwan Jennings can be dropped. Jordan Mason can be started. If he doesn't play, Isaac Grendo can be started as well. Obviously, Brock Purdy's a great start, the number one graded PFF quarterback. And then for the Chiefs, I'm personally starting Kareem Hunt and Juju. I think they're both pretty good plays. Obviously, you're just riding the flames with them, hoping they get a lot of volume. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire is back, so hopefully he doesn't get too much work and muddy that backfield. And then obviously Travis Kelce's a must start. Patrick Mahomes is kind of a must waiver wire guy. I think you're dropping Patrick Mahomes if you have the cojones, and I think that's about it.
It's wild to say that, since we're on the topic right now, let me pull up Patrick Mahomes fantasy stats real quick. Bear with me as I should have had them up already. Um, yeah, Patrick Mahomes, position rank 23, 16.6 points a game. Patrick Mahomes on the sea, he's thrown an interception in every single game this year. And then two in week two versus the Cincinnati Bengals. So Patrick Mahomes in the 5 games that he has played, he has thrown 6 interceptions. It is weird. He's only thrown for over 300 yards once, which is just very unlike Patrick Mahomes. And yeah, when we're averaging 16 points a game, this is crazy. I mean, yeah, almost at this point, you'd be better off going to your waiver wire and picking up Drake May just because there's going to be a little bit more upside there for fantasy points. But I mean, also we're talking about, Xavier Worthy, Juju Smith-Schuster, Justin Watson, McCole Hardman, Sky Moore as your wide receiver core. It's pretty brutal. And like you said, Uncle Travis Kelce out there. I mean, obviously, there's not a lot of upside. He's not getting any rushing upside from Patrick Mahomes at all this year. I mean, what's the most he's rushed for? 29 yards. He has no touchdowns, so there's nothing there. But yeah, you're right. You have the cojones and you want to go pick up Drake May and start him over Patrick Mahomes. You really should at this point.
Yeah, probably in most leagues, there's just better waiver wire options. Maybe even like a Sam Darnold, Bo Nix is getting a lot of rushing upside. There's just probably better options on the waiver wire. I actually saw Bo Nix has outscored Patrick Mahomes in fantasy so far. So yeah, crazy, crazy disappointing fantasy season for Mahomes, who was drafted as a top three quarterback. You mentioned Xavier Worthy. I forgot to mention him in fantasy. You start him as well. But this should be a really fun game. Let's go on to the next game, the Sunday night football game. The 2-4 New York Jets are going to go into Pittsburgh, play the 4-2 Steelers. The Jets are 2.5-point road favorites in this one, getting new addition Davante Adams reuniting with Aaron Rodgers. So electric. Obviously, that really makes this offense a lot more exciting. You got Garrett Wilson now being covered by corner twos, second best corners on teams. That should be really, really exciting. Open up a lot of things for that team. I think Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson both will be pretty solid in fantasy rest of season. Should help Breece Hall as well. Just this overall offense should be a lot better. Going on to the other side, you got Russell Wilson making a start just out of nowhere. It kind of just feels like a just kind of a blindside decision. But Russell Wilson on Sunday Night Football is going to be coming out here against this Jets defense. Give me the Jets in this one. I just don't trust Russ. I just don't think he's good. I think Justin Fields is better in real football because Justin Fields' rushing ability is just a lot harder to game plan for. It gives you a higher ceiling. You're probably going to score more points with Justin Fields. In fantasy football, though, I do think Russell Wilson's better for fantasy football. I think he helps George Pickens tremendously. I think he helps Najee Harris tremendously because he's not taking all the rushing. I do think he helps in fantasy football, but give me the Jets in this one. They just have the better team. I think their defense gives Russell Wilson some trouble. His first game of the season. Obviously, the upside is very capped, and I do think the vibes are immaculate with the Jets getting Davante Adams in here. I think he's going to have a great game, instant chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, and I think it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I'm right on the same page with you. If Justin Fields was starting in this game, I may have a little bit different, decision. However, with Russell Wilson, Russell Wilson, in my opinion, is just not a very good quarterback. Like you said, though, I think, from a fantasy aspect, if you're a George Pickens owner, you'll probably be happy about this one, because you're going to see those moon balls, those deep shots to George Pickens more. But yeah, the overall way Justin Fields has been running this offense is honestly surgical. He goes out there, he limits mistakes. He's got the rushing upside, and I think he just fits perfect. It was just like the perfect team for Justin Fields to really go to and have a resurgence on his career. And it's too bad Russell Wilson's going to hinder that. That dream for Steelers fans. I think Steelers fans are probably irritated with it. But yeah, I mean, obviously the main storyline here, Aaron Rodgers reuniting with Davante Adams. Just crazy stuff, man. I mean, the Jets roster and what they've been able to build is so incredible. However, they've not been able to really translate that to the field. I don't know how much Davante Adams is going to change that at 33 or 34 years old, whatever he is. He's still a great receiver. He's got that chemistry. Definitely makes this receiving core room a lot more deeper, a lot better. And yeah, I will obviously be picking the Jets to win in this game because I do trust them and I do trust the star power of this team to just overwhelm the Steelers a little too much. However, I do think it'll be somewhat of a close game. I think this one will be kind of a nail biter, but I do trust Aaron Rodgers and, just the storyline of Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams reuniting to have, their first win together.
Yep, I think the vibes will prevail here. I think Davante Adams could get a touchdown, and it could be fun with that connection reuniting. Going on to fantasy, I do think you start Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson. I think they'll both be pretty solid this week. Like I said, the vibes are just great for the Jets. I think that they're going to have a really good resurgence here, after firing the coach, after, getting Davante Adams in here. I just think that some things will change, and at least for now, I don't really think it'll sustain rest of season, but for now, I think this Jets offense will look pretty solid. So you're starting Brees, Garrett, Vonta, maybe even Aaron Rodgers if you want now. I think he's a lot better in fantasy. And that's it for the Jets. For the Steelers, you're obviously starting Pickens and Najee because I do think that Russ really helps their, you know, fantasy projection, really. Cortland Sutton had a pretty good season last year, and George Pickens is better than Sutton. So I do think it'll be similar to that. But I think that's about it. You can start Pat Freiermuth if you've been starting him. And I think that's it for this one.
Do you know that Garrett Wilson had 23 targets versus Minnesota week 5?
Yep. Absurd.
23 targets. He only came down with 13 of them, but in the last two games, Garrett Wilson has had 33 targets. That's insane. That's
Yeah.
insane. That volume will definitely go down now with Davante Adams.
Definitely going to go down. I think he actually leads the league in targets. So yeah, that definitely will go down. But ironically, I think the target's going to be a lot more valuable going against CB2s. I do think with Davante Adams will help him a lot, and he'll probably be maybe even a little bit better in fantasy because of it. But let's go on to the first of two Monday Night Football games. The 4-2 Ravens are going to go into Tampa, play the 4-2 Buccaneers. A pretty nice matchup here. The Ravens are 3.5 point road favorites in this one. Zay Flowers coming off a nice game, obviously a big win against the Commanders. The Ravens looked awesome. Derrick Henry looks like the best running back in the NFL, which is crazy. I feel like we were all way too low on him coming into fantasy, and I regret not getting him in more leagues, although I do have him in a league, and it feels awesome because he is just so dominant. It feels like he's getting you 20 plus, maybe 30 points every single week in fantasy. Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, I mean, as we kind of could have foreseen. It's just a ridiculous run game, by far the best run game in the NFL. And the second team isn't even remotely close. Just an incredible, incredible run game. And the passing game is not too shabby as well, with Zay Flowers playing some pretty solid football. So give me the Ravens in this one. I do think it's going to be pretty close. Obviously going into Tampa, the Bucks have been playing awesome as well. The offense is incredible. They clicked last week. Chris Godwin just was looking like a complete superstar. Obviously, playing him in fantasy was very frustrating because he was just getting hyper targeted. Mike Evans always has down weeks against Marshawn Lattimore. I expect a pretty big week from Mike Evans in this one. I just think this is going to be a big, high scoring, high powered barn burner of a game. But I think the Ravens come out on top. I think Lamar is playing MVP football. And we talked about our top two teams in the NFL earlier this pod. I do think the Ravens are the best team in the NFL right now. I just think Lamar literally is the MVP right now. Derrick Henry's playing ridiculous, and the Ravens defense always finds a way in the end.
Yeah, I just want to say, you know, this is from a fantasy aspect, this should be a really fun game. I mean, this is Lamar Jackson is quarterback number two in fantasy. Derrick Henry is running back number two in fantasy. And then Baker Mayfield is quarterback one in fantasy, and Chris Godwin is wide receiver one in fantasy. So very, very high implication games. This should be a very, very exciting, fun, high scoring, just a really fun matchup for Monday Night Football. And I'm on the exact same page with you. I think the Ravens are the better team. I think they're harder to beat. I think that run game with Lamar and Derrick Henry is no joke. And they're really just starting to get humming right now, and they're kind of an unstoppable wrecking force, and trying to stop Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson in the backfield is next to impossible.
Absolutely. They've been dominant going into fantasy. You're obviously starting those two. Don't need to talk about that. Zay Flowers has a great matchup in this one. The Bucks secondary has been a little bit suspect, better than last year, but a little bit suspect. I think Zay Flowers is a great start because this will be a high scoring, super powered offensive game. I don't want to start any of the Ravens tight ends. I mean, Mark Andrews is coming off a good week, probably can be rostered, but I wouldn't start any of the Ravens tight ends. But I do want to shout out Tyke Smith real quick, the guy on the graphic. He's looked awesome. He was my slot cornerback one slash safety one in the class this year. He's looked incredible. One of the highest graded players from PFF. Shout out to Tyke Smith, but I still think Zay Flowers gets his going for the Bucks. You're starting Mike Evans, you're starting Godwin. Obviously, if Rashad White doesn't go, Bucky Irvin's a great play. I don't really want to start Sean Tucker. He's super fun, but I'm not starting him. Rashad White, I'm probably not starting even if he does play. And then Kate Otten, I think, is a pretty good start. I think he's actually a great deep cut at tight end this week. I just think they're going to have to be chasing, and it's going to be a high scoring game that you want to target.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's like we said, this is another game you should target. Do not start these defenses. It's gonna this could be one of the high scoring games. This may be my seeker's pick for the high scoring game of the week.
Yeah, I could totally see just a huge shootout barn burner of a game in Tampa, target it in fantasy and take the overs. Going on to the last game of the week, the second of the Monday night games, the game that starts at 9 p.m. Eastern makes zero sense. This game starts at 9 p.m. I mean, we live on the West Coast, so I just feel terrible for anyone on the East Coast that has to watch this game, staying up till 1 a.m. watching this football game in Arizona. That's just crazy to me.
Wow.
But the 3-2 LA Chargers go into Arizona, play the 2-4 Cardinals, coming off, a struggle loss. They're kind of been a little bit disappointing this year, and the Chargers have been, exceeding expectations, looking really solid. They're 2.5 point road favorites in this one. Black uniforms for the Cardinals. But how do you see this one playing out?
It's gonna be a tough game, man. I will be riding with my Chargers in this one. I think Jesse Minter has this defense just playing super sound, and I think what the Chargers have to do from an offensive side of the ball is they need to score, about 17 to 20 points in order to win really any game. Jesse Minter is a brilliant defensive coordinator. He's going to keep the game low scoring. And so if the Chargers offense, they got humming a little bit last week against a really, really good Denver D, I think they'll be able to do it against, a little bit weaker of a Cardinals defense. And, I think they're going to be able to run the ball. I think they're going to be able to establish their dominance up front in the trenches with a healthy Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt playing. And I think ultimately that'll be the difference is the Chargers defense. I think it's just better than the Cardinals. And I think the run game and having the two offensive tackles back is just going to be what's overwhelming. However, I think it'll be a pretty low scoring game. I think if Marvin Harrison Jr. plays, it could change the outcome. Obviously, he has till Monday to get past the concussion protocol. But yeah, I mean, Kyler Murray scrambling, he will put up some points, but I think overall the Chargers are just playing a little bit more sound, safe football. They're mitigating turnovers, they're playing precise, and they're playing for that field possession, and it's ultimately working.
Yeah, I want to pick the Cardinals in this one, but just thinking about it logically, I mean, J.K. Dobbins should be able to run all over this Cardinals run defense, which has been pretty abysmal. I think J.K. Dobbins has a huge game in this one. Marvin Harrison Jr., I do project to be out in this one. He's likely out with that concussion. That's a big swing because he is the X factor for the Cardinals offense. Speaking of Marvin Harrison Jr., if he doesn't play, if you have him in fantasy, I would pick up I think Michael Wilson could have a big week if he doesn't play. Obviously, the Chargers secondary is very banged up. Maybe
Mhm.
even Greg Dortch if Michael Wilson's picked up in your league. And then also, I just see the Cardinals offense continuing to struggle. The Chargers defense has been awesome, but the Cardinals offense has been just not clicking. I don't know what it is. I can't even really explain or put a finger on what it is. But Kyler, Marvin, this Cardinals offense just has not been clicking outside of Trey McBride and some nice James Conner runs. I do think the Chargers come away with this one very banged up, so it's hard to be confident with it. It's gonna be, in Arizona prime time. It's hard to be confident with it, but I do think just logically the Chargers probably will win this game. They're road favorites as well. The signs are pointing towards the Chargers winning this game. So I will be taking the Chargers as well. Herbert looked awesome last week against the Broncos. He was just picking them apart, a really hard team to pick apart with the blitz. And this Cardinals defense is just kind of playing soft. We saw it with the Packers last week. They ripped them to shreds. So I do think the Cardinals have been really disappointing. I'm going to take the Chargers.
Yeah, it honestly feels like a game that, like you said earlier with your Broncos, the first game we talked about in this series could be a trap game. Could see Kyler Murray scrambling all over the place and making it hell for this defense. However, I do trust my goat, Jesse Minter. He has been an absolute lifesaver for my Sunday of watching football. But super excited for this one. Super excited for this week. Just a lot of really good matchups, a lot of close games, a lot of iffy plays. I think this has been one of the weeks we picked, the most, opposite against each other. The first, I think, 5 games we were almost split on most of them. So it's going to be a really exciting game, and for pick'ems, it's going to be a deciding week. Who really takes the leap here.
Absolutely should be electric. And yeah, I mean, I really do think this is just a bad matchup for the Cardinals. The Chargers want to play that, run the ball, play defense type of game. The Cardinals just aren't really going to match up well. I really am pretty confident the Chargers do win this game in a close, low scoring game. Going into fantasy for the Chargers, are smashing Dobbins. You have to start Dobbins in this matchup. It's a great matchup for running backs. Receiver wise, I think Lad McConkey's the only other guy I'm touching for the Chargers. And then for the Cardinals, it's obviously Marvin if he somehow plays, Trey McBride, James Conner, you're starting. And then I think if Marvin doesn't play, I think Michael Wilson will be a big beneficiary. I think he could actually eat and be like a pretty big boom week if Marvin doesn't play. So monitor Marvin for sure. He's a big X factor in this game. And I think that's about it for this one.
Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly. Really excited to see J.K. Dobbins out there, see if he can put up another big fantasy week. Lad McConkey still waiting for that 100-yard game. But yeah, I mean, I really, almost just I want to see the Chargers face Marvin Harrison Jr. I want to see that Harbaugh versus, Ohio State Marvin Harrison Jr. who torched him so much. It should just be a really fun game. A lot of fun game scripts, this week, but just super excited to get into this week.
Yeah, and if you want to pick up Kamani Vidal as a high upside stash, he could be fun as well. Got that receiving touchdown last week, but really fun going over all these games. Went really in depth for week 7, but some really good matchups, some matchups that could easily have been prime time that weren't. So really fun going over all these games. Anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
Did he die in prison, Dan?
Who?
Mandela. Did Mandela die in prison?
Oh, I don't even know about that one, honestly. I don't know about that conspiracy.
That's all right. It's sleepy stores hour over here. I'm trying to keep my eyes awake. It's late. I've been up since like 6 this morning. But I remember Mandela died in prison for whatever reason. That's the Mandela effect. Let us know what you think about the Mandela effect. Is it true? Is it not true? Are we crazy? Are we living in a simulation? It's getting to that late night hour conspiracy stores hour.
All right, we'll get out of here before Stores spurts out some more Mandela effects, and I don't even want to know what the next one is. So, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the NFL Seekers podcast. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace out.
Peace.